Hello and welcome. Today we're going to do a little bit of a get ready with me style video featuring some Dior holiday items, mostly Dior Backstage. So I did get a couple of requests on YouTube and Instagram to take another look at these products. So I wanted to show you another way that I've been using these because actually they have been some of my most used holiday items this year and I just love the color stories. So let's go ahead and take a look. Starting off with the SUQQU face primer because this is one of my favorite primers for this time of year. It's hydrating yet not too sticky. It gives a dewy finish and it doesn't seem to increase any like oil or anything on my skin throughout the day. It performs super well and I just find it so comfortable. So this has been a real go-to for me and I've been loving the Dior foundation stick. I wear shade 0N and I think this works best with a nice synthetic buffing style brush. You want something a little dense and it works well either applying it directly to the brush or onto your face directly. Of course, there are other application methods for this as well, but these are my favorite. And today I'm using the Jones Road Everything brush, which is a really nice, dense buffing brush. So this is the face primer and the foundation. Now I'm going to apply eye primer and I'm going to use the NYX in whatever this one is. This is the Ultimate and it's their light shade. And then I'm going to do a light dusting with the Koh Gen Do pressed powder, which is my favorite. Now for eye primer, I'm going in with the NYX Ultimate. This is the Shadow and Liner Primer, and this is a nice basic primer. It does what it's supposed to do. I don't notice anything special or anything like that, but it seems to perform well. So been using that. And then my favorite face powder is the Koh Gen Do pressed powder. I just love the way this looks on my skin. And I'm using one of my favorite powder brushes. This is from Ihodo. I have the one with the goldfish. This is kind of a paddle style brush, but they also have it with a geisha on the brush. And that's what's currently available. Now we're going to go ahead and move into the Dior Backstage eyeshadow palette. So let's bring it in a little bit closer. All right, so I'm taking the Hakuhodo J5533. I'm going to start off with this shade here, and I'm just going to kind of use this as a base for the crease. And so I'm going to put this in the crease. You can see this is a pretty large crease brush, and I'm actually moving this up right under the brow. This will double as my brow highlight. Next, I want something a little bit smaller. So I'm taking the Rephr 13 Max and I'm going into the shade right next to it and we're going deep in the crease. So I always tap off anything that might be an excess on the microfiber cloth, which I always put on my lap while I'm applying makeup. So I'm just going to deepen the crease a bit with this. So I'm wearing a purple sweater, so I don't want to be too matchy-matchy and go totally purple. So I'm actually going to be using these three shades here, maybe a little bit of the light blue, but we're going to start off with the navy. And I'm still using the Rephr brush. So I just have a little bit here on the brush, and I'm just going to add this to the outer portion of the lid. Next, I'm taking the Chikuhodo or Ihodo Artist. This is the 30-4 brush, and you can get this from Ihodo or Chikuhodo brand, but it is, Ihodo offers it in longer handles, and Chikuhodo has the shorter handles, which is what I have now. So I'm just going to add a little bit of this burgundy shade here, and I'm going just past the midline. Just blending the edges with the navy a little bit. Next, I'm going to go into the middle shade here, and I'm going to put this on the inner portion of the eye, and let's just see how this looks. You can see it's pretty big difference actually with the burgundy, so I'm going to need to blend that a little bit. Just kind of blur those edges. All right, so I'm just wiping off my Rephr 13 Max that I used. I'm just gonna kind of go in with the crease a little bit one more time with no additional shadow. Taking the Chikuhodo brush again, I'm just gonna get a little bit of this light blue And I'm going to add this to the inner corner. And you can see it has a little bit of a reflect, and where I layer it over the pink shade, it gets a really beautiful like purple hue to it as well. So for under the lash line, I'm going to use the navy blue, but I'm just using a tiny little bit on the tip of the brush, and I'm just going to put it on this outer third here. And then I'm going to blend it out with maybe the light blue. I'm not sure yet. Yeah, let's go ahead and use the light blue. So it's going to be a little sparkly though. So, you know, if you don't like sparkle, don't use this shade. That actually might be a little bit too much. So I'm going to take my finger with the microfiber cloth and I'm just going to wipe away some of it. So just to get rid of a little bit of the excess. And I never add a concealer. So I'm going to take a little bit of the, this is the Victoria Beckham, and I have shade FL2. Sometimes I really hate these like click up applicators. I have to say this one doesn't, you know, it's fine. It's not usually an issue, but the style in general can be a bit annoying. So I'm just going to use my finger because honestly, I just don't feel like getting another brush dirty. I have a whole bunch that need to be cleaned. And typically with the Victoria Beckham concealer, I use FL1 or FL2. FL2 has kind of been the one I've been using the most recently, but you can see today it's a little bit deeper. So I should have mixed the FL1 with it, but I'm just gonna add a little FL1 on top. So here's the FL1. You can see it is much more ivory. And yeah, I feel like I can see too much of the yellowness in the FL2. Just going to tap a little bit of this on top. And I used very small amount of actual concealer. So it kind of, you know, just added a little bit, not too much coverage. You can definitely get more coverage with this if you go in a little bit heavier. I'm just taking my powder brush I used before. Didn't add any additional powder, but just adding a little bit there just to make sure the finish is the same. And then for eyeliner, I'm going to take the silver one. This is Pearly Silver from DIOR. So I'm not being super neat or anything. I want to make sure I can actually see the silver. So I'm putting a little bit of a thicker line on there. And I don't really want a wing, but I'm just going to add a little bit extra on the edges there so that it's still kind of visible once I add the mascara. All right, so this is the eye look up close. And for mascara, I've been really loving the Byredo in Magnetic State, so I'm going to go in with that. Another great choice for mascara if you're looking for purple, I really have been enjoying the Chanel Amethyst one that came out with their holiday collection. So that's another good option, especially if you want to emphasize the purple. I don't want to emphasize too much purple because I already have so much purple on today, but I do really like that one. And as I've shared before, I really like putting the amethyst on the upper lashes and the lila, the light purple, on the lower lashes. But I'm going to skip lower lashes today. I'm taking the Byredo brow pencil, and I have the shade Sand. So I'm just going to do this real quickly. So this is the finished eye look. I have to say I've really been loving the DIOR Backstage palette for holiday. I love purples, so that really helps, but I love having the blues in here as well. A lot of the purple and violet palettes we see, they are very pink based, very red based, and having that blue in there helps you kind of cool that off if you want a little bit more of a blue tone. But for people who like the pinker tones, we also have that burgundy, and I think it just makes it very versatile. So for blush, I actually wanted to go in with, I wanted to test out using the highlighter palette, the Blush Rose shade. And I wanted to make that a little bit deeper by adding the middle shade from the DIOR Backstage palette. So I'm going to bring you in closer. So I'm taking the Ren 03 highlight brush because I want something small for this. And I'm going to start by mixing on the back of my hand. So I'm going to try to isolate, you know, just this pink shade in the center of the Backstage palette. So I've got that here, and I'm going to just kind of work that into the brush a little bit. So I'm just using the back of my hand to kind of pounce on there and make sure it's worked into the bristles. And then I'm going to go into this pink shade from the highlighter palette, tap off the excess, and let's see how this works. You can see it's definitely shiny from the highlighter palette. So I did want to cut that back a little bit, but you know what? We're just going to go with it. So here's the highlighter blush. I have to say it's a little bit too much for me. So I'm going to tone it down a little bit with my powder. So I'm just going to go back in with the Koh Gen Do powder that I used before, tap off any excess, and I'm just going to kind of go over this a little bit. And it's not really removing too much. I could totally blend it out more if I want, but I don't know if I'd like the finish of that then. So I think I'm just gonna wipe off the brush and just blend this for a couple minutes with no additional products, and just kind of continually wipe any excess off on my cloth to soften it a little bit. So I'll see you in a second. All right, so it's still definitely evident, but it is a little bit softer and less shiny. So I'm happy with this. And you know, I probably wouldn't always do a sparkle lip, but for the holidays, let's go in with one of the sequin shades. I bought so many of them, I definitely want to make sure that I am using them. So let me bring you in closer. So I'm going to go in with this one, which is shade 703. And honestly, this is my favorite. I love the red, the 999. But aside from that one, this is my favorite. So this is the final look. I have to say, I really love in particular the eyeshadow and the blush, the way it turned out. This lip is a little bit more, you know, it's a deep muted tone. And I think, you know, normally I might like lighten this up a little bit. So let me go ahead. I'm going to change the lip to something a little lighter and brighter. I think that might just work a little bit better. This would be a great lip more for like a nighttime look. But for me, I'm working on daytime here. So let's go ahead and change this up. So I thought about going in with one of the DIOR Backstage shades, which I really love, but I didn't want this just to be a Backstage look. So I decided to go in with one of the permanent shades. This is number 678 Cult, and it's in a satin formula. So let's take a look at this. So I really like the DIOR satin lipsticks. I think they actually did a really great job with their reformulation of the Rouge DIOR lipsticks this year. So I've really been using them a lot. You know, their reformulations, I feel like the lip products have been pretty good, but powder products, not so great. So, but the lipsticks, I love them, and they've got such a great color range. If you're looking for some lighter, cooler tones, they have a pretty expansive shade range, which is great. All right, so I'm happy with this finished look. Let's just go ahead and do some swatches and just give you a brief overview of my thoughts on these products. So we already covered all of the base products while I was applying those, so we're not going to take a look at those again, but let's move into the DIOR Backstage palette, and I love it. I'm just going to go ahead and swatch the entire palette because I think it's worth it. You can see some different, you know, options for stories. You could totally just kind of stick to this top row and go with more of a golden hued look, something a little warmer. We have kind of this light ivory shade mixed with a little bit of cream. So there's a little bit of a yellowish base to it. And then we have a nice soft peach. This is more of a copper brown. We have this beautiful lilac shade, which I think is stunning. It is pretty light. It's a lightly pigmented shade. So if you're trying to get it to be a little bit more emphasized, you might want to consider using a wet brush. Then we have that magenta pink, and this is the burgundy. So again, we can break these up into color stories by row. You can also break them up by, column. We have a silver and then this light blue, which is a bit of a duochrome with some pink in there, and then the navy. And again, I just think it's such a great color story because we have kind of like a cooler tone purple theme to it, yet it's not all purples. You've got some warmer tone shades, some cooler tone shades, so you can sort of mix and match, and it ends up being pretty versatile. The Dior Backstage formulas, I think they're okay. I don't think there's anything spectacular about them. They work. They don't crease. They can be a little bit powdery. So, they're not like a luxe formula or anything in my opinion, but they work. So if there's a color story you like, I think is worth getting. As for the Celestial Glow Holiday Palette, I do like this a lot, but this first shade, I have to say I don't use too much. This is a white glitter. I like this one best on my eyes. And so I usually use this pairing it with something in the eyeshadow palette. These other shades though in the highlighter palette are ones that I have been using quite a bit. I really like this light peach, but the one I use the most is this blue or this pink. And you can see that it's actually a blush, a highlighter blush. And then our last shade, the blue, is kind of like a lighter version of the eyeshadow. It's a little bit icier. So for me, I've been using these two bottom shades the most. And I have to say, both of these palettes from Dior are two of my most used holiday products so far. There's just ones that I reach for on days when I'm not filming. I just want something, just something quick and easy that I don't really have to think about. I love these. So I love the colors. I love the shimmers. I think they're really nice. And what I love about this highlighter palette is we do have different finishes. You can see this is going to be very glittery and sparkly. The peach is pretty subdued. It's a very soft highlight. The pink is a bit more, but you can see it's more metallic than glitter. And then this one is kind of like a duochrome kind of hint. So we've got like a variety of options there, and you can mix and match these as well. Now, also on the eyes, I used the Dior Pearly Silver eyeliner, which I really like this one. I think they did a nice job on the reformulation of the eyeliners. The old ones were terrible to the point where I ended up getting rid of all of them because sometimes right when I ordered them, they would arrive that way. But otherwise, within a couple months, they would be like dry and crumbly and they didn't go on smoothly. So these I do really like. We have, a smudger tip here. And then if you pull off the end here, it's a little bit tighter, but there is a sharpener to sharpen the tip here. So this is Pearly Silver, and I like how it's a pretty true silver, not too bright, but it doesn't really have any of that gray or that blue in there that sometimes we get. For the mascara, I've been loving the green Magnetic State from Byredo. It's just a nice hunter green. Honestly, I like this shade all year round, but I really love pairing it with the cooler purples and so forth because it's got a little bit more depth to kind of balance out some of those brighter, cool tones as well. Now for the lip products, again, as I mentioned, 703 in the sequins, this is one of my favorites. I just didn't love it with today's look because you can see it is kind of like a dusty mauve, but it's pretty deep, and we've got some purple in there. So I just felt like it was a little bit too much for this look, but this is a favorite of mine. And then I ended up switching to the satin lipstick in 678 Cult, and that's Cult with an E at the end. And you can see this is kind of a metallic pink. I really like it, and it reminds me a lot of the Chanel lip colors for holidays. Let's look at those. So it reminded me of these from Chanel Holiday. So this is the Rouge Allure L'Extrait. Let's go ahead, we'll put this one right here. And you can see that it's going to be warmer in tone. We still have a bit of that metallic pink vibe though, so it's similar, but this is a warmer tone option. And that's kind of the thing with Chanel. I feel like in general, their lipsticks do have warmer undertones. So they're very similar otherwise. And then we have 94 Crystal Pink in the Rouge Allure Lock. And let's put that one here. And this is going to be a bit of a cooler toned lip here. And let's just make a bigger swatch. And you can see this is going to be a little bit more similar to the Cult in the level of coolness, but we've got a bit more magenta in here. So there's a little bit more purple in there as well to make it a little bit of a deeper complex shade. So overall, I think all three are great options, and they are all ones that I really love. So I hope this was helpful. I'd love to know your thoughts on these products that I used here today. Let me know if you tried any of the DIOR Backstage or DIOR holiday items and what your favorites have been. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you very soon. Have a great day.